All right, guys. So I just zipped it on here real quick, but here's the fun part of this. Once you get done, you get pulled up. Look at that. Looks like it was made for it. Matter of fact, you can't even see me, right? All right, guys. This is a acrylic panel on the front of this center console that we're going to make, and I'm going to take you through everything from scratch to get it onto the boat. This is as nice of a canvas job that there is to be done. There isn't any companies out there that can do any more quality work than what you're about to see in this entire course. There's so many of these guys that explain that if you don't have digitized cutters and if you don't have these automated folders to make all these canvas components, you know, you can't do it exactly perfect, and that's what they advertise. And the way they advertise it, not true. I'm going to show you how to do all of this by hand, every step of the way. So when I say every step of the way, we're actually going to pattern this, and then I'm going to show you how to take the pattern to the shop and duplicate it onto the clear, cut the clear out to the right shape and size, and then also by hand make all these folded components that are all crisp and clean and fit on here so that you see nothing but nice clean edges on there. All right, so stay tuned. Here we go. Okay, so like I said, this is a really easy, straightforward piece to make. So we've got the awning rail that's already mounted right here at the top of the console, and then we have this other piece that's mounted on the deck there. So we're going to take a piece of 3/4 inch transfer tape, and this is really simple. I'm just going to run it right on the track, the top and the bottom. And go ahead and peel your paper off of it. So we leave the tape on there. Okay, now we have a just a piece of plastic that's cut out to, you know, approximately the right size. And what I like to do is just kind of fold this in half. Grab basically the center of it because it's going to be bigger than what we need. And then just guesstimate where the center is up here and just tack that on a little bit. Then you can come down here to the bottom and pull that out. Really simple. And see what I've done is I've kind of made myself a triangle. Now I can come over here and I can pull this up, stick that on, and just pull that triangle right out of it. Okay, very simple. So now we have our Sharpie that's hidden. All right, so right here at the bottom, now what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna put my Sharpie right in that track and scribe that line. And then I'm gonna indicate the start and the stop of the track. All right, so let's do the same thing at the top. So at the top, it's going to be done the exact same way. Put your line at the track, and then simply just scribe a line. I'm using my finger as a guide. And then we'll mark the end of that track. So now we need to know that that is the top and this is the outside, because this point from here to here and from there to there is not going to be exactly even. All right, so before you take it off, I always just check. Now, if this was an enclosure, something that was going to have multiple pieces going to it, There's a lot more steps than what we've just done. But what I want to do is I'm just going to end this right at the track so that the actual fabric is going to be the actual width of the track on there. And double check that you have everything on there and just simply remove it. And then always remember to remove your strapping tape. Now the transfer tape. So this transfer tape happens to be a little bit chilly today and we're inside, so we don't have to worry about the sun melting this stuff. But one tip is if it's hot outside, you would want to take a piece of strapping tape, which is like the fiberglass woven tape, and put that on there first, or even blue painter's tape, something that will come off real easy, and then apply this on top of that so that the stuff doesn't stick and where you can't get it off. So that's the reason why I'm not using that, is because it's a little bit cool in here, so we're good. So this piece will also just come right off. Okay, so let's go to the shop and we'll build all the components and get this done. Okay, so now that we're back at the shop, I just want to show you quickly what exactly is going to happen. So this is our Ketterwelt, right? That has the little bead in it that's going to slide into the track, and the bead itself is going to go just below this line as if it was going right into the track. All right, and then the zipper is actually going to be stitched onto the Ketterwelt. So this is really pretty easy. These number 10 zippers are exactly 1.5 inches wide. And what's going to happen once we stitch the Ketter to the zipper is the bottom edge of the zipper is going to technically fall right on top of this black line that we had scribed in. So what we need is 1.5 inches for the zipper, because we need to be able to sew the zipper down to just the fabric. And because we're working with the acrylic and it's hard, it's not like the Macrolon where you can stitch through there. We have to have that much fabric in order to sew the zipper down. So then above that is where it's going to get bonded. All right, so let's start. Here's what I do every time. We just got this in. I actually have the I have the top is facing up and the out is facing at me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my black Sharpie marker and I'm going to finish off the two sides right on top of where the track stopped. All right, so now let's figure out what size components we need. So this is everything that we're going to need in order to do this. You're going to have your scribe tool, which you can get from the website by registering as a member there and getting in. And you need a clear. This just happens to be an 18-inch by 2-inch clear ruler, which you can get at any fabric store. And then we need a straight edge, which can be picked up at any Home Depot, Lowe's, anything like that. So, and then what we need here is we also need another color Sharpie, and I always go with red to mark my my panels where I'm going to cut my clear. So if you haven't got into the lessons, you'll learn the different colors that I use. But you color code this stuff is basically just a simple response here. So, all right, we need 3 different size components on this thing. The bottom edge down here, I want 1/2 inch of material to overlap the awning rail that we mounted on the boat. So it looks clear or clean, so you can't see that. Up at the top will be a different size component because I actually don't want any material above the awning rail because that's the hard top. So what we'll do is we'll stop it so that the bead of the Ketterwelting is actually at the top. So that's a different size component than this one down here. And then also on the sides, I want to have a 1.5 inch finish looking valance component that goes on the side. And we need to have 3/4 of it overlapping onto the acrylic, and then 3/4 of that being loose on the outside edge in the event that you were ever to sew a zipper on there. So let's start with the sides. And I'm going to take my red Sharpie, and half of 1.5 inches is obviously 3/4 of an inch. And we know that the sides are straight because we just used our straight edge to do that. So let's just draw in a red 3/4 inch cutoff for our clear. Let's do the same thing on the other side. All right. Now, when it comes to the clear, now I just said that the components are going to be different sizes for the top and the bottom, but our cuts are not. We need a 1.5 inch cut above our scribe line on the top and the bottom so that that zipper will fit in there. So it may not look like it on film or on when we did the scribing, but neither one of these things are straight because the top had just a little bit of a curve to it, and actually this bottom one may be straight. Actually, it does look like it is. But if the bottom was not straight as well, you would take your clear ruler and pull off 3/4 of an inch and just follow the line. That one happened to be straight, but I know for a fact that this top up here is not. So this is really easy. I can see my 1.5 inch mark, and I'm just using that to trace, and I don't pick my pencil up or my red Sharpie up so that I can make just one nice, very continuous curve on there. So now we actually have the shape of the acrylic itself. Now keep in mind, you'll see this as we go, this is not the finished look. There's actually going to be 3/4 of an inch of material that's going to go over and overlap the clear so that we have someplace to bond on there. So let's get a different angle here and we'll start cutting out material for components. All right, so I just jumped ahead on you because there's some trade secrets, like I was explaining at the beginning of this thing, that are just not going to be put out until you get involved. So I cut this out already, and it's done. And if you were to be standing in my visual spot looking down at this, you could see that it is cut out exactly the right shape and right size as our red lines on here. So in the film is still on the acrylic, which, by the way, this is your standard 80 mil acrylic, all right? So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to write on here that this is the top outside so that we don't get this confused, because we're actually going to use the piece of acrylic to cut out our components. So now that we have that, theoretically, your pattern is done from this point, okay? So let's go ahead and move our pattern, and we'll start out with our components. Now I'm going to make and install the top and the bottom first, and then we'll put the two sides on there, and I'll show you why later. But prior to that, what we need to do is remember that we said that we were going to have 3/4 of an inch of material overlap on the edges. So I've got this weight bag that I've made. It's play sand is all it is. It's play sand in a bag, and to be honest with you, what I did was I went and I actually bonded the fabric together, and then I stitched it down so that it can't leak out any sand. And right here at the top, once I've made the bag and I flipped it inside out, I cut a slit in here, filled it with sand, and then I just bonded again this patch right over the top of it, so there is no leaking of sand anywhere. And then you want to make sure that you keep the bottom of this thing clean, because if you get glue or tape or whatever inside there and you start sliding it around, it can cut through this film. So even though you have a film on here, you still have to be real careful of it that you don't slide it around and scratch this clear. All right, that being said, let's get right to it. So I've got my scribe tool, and what I did was I set it to 3/4 of an inch. And this is really simple to do, but you can mess it up. So I'm going to score the film on all the way around this thing, and we'll pick off. We're just going to pull off that 3/4 of an inch of film. All right, so we're going to do this on the inside and the outside, all the way around, using the same 3/4 of an inch mark there. So let me do that and then we'll come back. Okay, here is another secret that is going to be revealed. This vinyl is called breakwater, and I love it. I absolutely love it. This stuff bonds really well. And I also like it because when you fold it and crease it, the crease will stay in there. If you haven't noticed, it got warm, so I took my sweatshirt off. But all right, so we've got our panel. The top is up at us right now, and I've went ahead and cut 3/4 of an inch of the film off all the way around this thing. Here, this is an important step. You want to do your first scribing on the inside, okay? So the fabric is two-way now. There's an outside and an inside to this fabric, or a good side and a bad side. So I want the good side to be facing not only in but out as well. So what I want is the good side of the fabric facing up to me. Flip this panel over so that I'm looking at the inside of the acrylic. And here's another little secret. These are same thing, just tubes about 3 inches in diameter that I filled with play sand, and I bonded and I stitched these down so that the sand won't come out and you get sand all over your table, for heaven's sake. So, but I like to use these things because they, well, you'll see when we start bonding, these things work really good. It's really simple to make. And I have my scribe tool here, okay? And I'm just using a number 2 pencil. And all right, so at the bottom, remember I said that we have the 1.5 inch for the zipper itself, but we want to add an extra 1/2 inch because of overlapping onto the track. We want to kind of hide that track a little bit. So I'm going to start off by, even though this is straight, all right, you could do this with a ruler, but I find that it takes a lot less effort to just use the clear because it makes it perfect every time. So I'm going to scribe a line right at the bottom edge of the clear. Now, very important, and here's where a lot of people make their mistakes. I'm going to slide this down. Let me get a close-up. So I just scribed the bottom edge. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull this straight down, and I'm going to put the 3/4 inch seam allowance that we cut into our film right on top of that white line. Or, I'm sorry, that pencil line. So you put your weight bag back on top of it so that you can, so it holds itself down and it can't move around. And now this is why we're doing the inside. I'm going to put another mark right at the bottom edge right there. I just broke my pencil. But that mark is going to represent where we're going to sew the zipper on. All right? So let me back this up a little bit. All right, let me reiterate. We have 2 lines now scribed onto our component. One is going to be the fold line, and now the bottom one that we just etched in there is our zipper line. So from the bottom here now, we just said that we want 2 inches. So now I readjust my scribe tool to where it says 2 inches, and now we're going to use the scribe tool to go the opposite way. You know, the first time what we did was we set it up and we came in and we scribed on the inside. This time we're going to flip it around, and I'm going to put the 2 inch right on the edge of the clear right there. And I'm going to scribe in a 2 inch line. Now, if that's curved or if it's swervy or whatever, this thing will make it exactly the right size. So at this point, use what I want to do too is right on the edge, I want to scribe in a line that shows where the edge of the actual clear is on both sides of this. But we're not going to use that as etched in stone. Those are kind of just going to be reference marks, because remember, we're going to make 2 of these panels. We have to line them up, blah, blah, blah. You'll see that as it goes. But okay, so now that we've got the actual length of the panel, as you can see, from the bottom of the clear is our 2 inches. From the bottom of the clear up is that 3/4 inch. And, well, hold up. All right, I lost my ruler, so I had to go find my ruler. So now what we need is we need enough material on the top of this to be able to fold underneath, so that on the clear we've got a nice clean finished edge. And this being 3/4 of an inch, I like to add 1/4 of an inch to the turnover. So I'm going to scribe this in at 1 inch. Makes it pretty simple when you've got a clear ruler that you can see through. So that's actually the size of the one piece of the component. Now we can go ahead, and I'm going to make sure that you leave yourself extra material. Don't cut that off right on that same line. But what you can do is cut off the top mark, right on the money. You can cut that off. And here again, you can do this either way. A lot of times you can leave this. You'd have to see the whole thing, but I'll go ahead and cut it off just for demonstration purposes. But a lot of times I'll leave this extra material down at the bottom so that I can sew those in together. All right. Now with that done, I will actually write on here, because a pencil will come off. This is the bottom inside, BI, bottom inside. And I know that. So now I need to make my component for the top, or for the outside rather. So I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to duplicate the same exact process with exception of 2 things. First of all, I'm going to scribe the bottom of this. Right? And now I'm going to pull this down just like we did before, so that I'm lining up that mark. And now I don't need the extra mark in here because I'm not sewing the zipper on the inside. And I don't need to scribe our 2 inch at the bottom, because we're going to use this piece that we already made as that reference. But what I do need is I need these side marks that are going to coincide with the side marks on this piece, so that we make sure that we get it lined up there. And one thing that you just want to double check is that you definitely have the 2 inches. You know, have enough fabric down here that you have the 2 inches. So at this point, we can move that out of the way. And now we need to remark our 1 inch fold, the same as we did on the inside piece. Okay? And we can go ahead and cut this piece off just exactly the same. Okay. If you're doing multiple panels all at one time and you're going to cut everything out and keep your productivity up, you can also write on here that this is the outside bottom piece. That can keep you very organized if you mark all those panels. Some people put colored dots on them, blah, 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 but if you just write it on there. So let's go ahead and let's do the exact same thing, but we're gonna do the top, all right? So first thing I want to do is I want to flip this over and make certain that I have, slide this down to me, I'm going to make certain that I have the inside of the top, because that's the first piece that we're going to make. And I'll put my weight bag on it to hold it down. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to scribe the edge in, right? Then I'm going to pull the clear down so that that mark is right on top, right there. And this is, again, the inside, and we're going to stitch a zipper on here, so we need to have that zipper mark on there. We also need to have our reference lines. Boy, these pencils, I don't know what is the deal with these pencils. Oh, pencil sharpener right there. Yeah, this is, I don't know what, I wish somebody would invent something that's real for this stuff. I can already tell you it's going to break again. I don't know what the deal is. I don't like to use ink because ink doesn't come off very well. I don't like to use Sharpie because it definitely doesn't come off. Pencil is about what I found works the best. I even use a pencil on sunbrella a lot of times, if you can see it, if it's not a dark color. All right, so let me figure out where we're at. Okay, we've got the zipper mark, we've got our fold mark, we need to have our edge, that's where I broke the pencil, right? Okay, so now we need to do the edges. The edge mark is critical that you wait until you pull that down before you put your edge marks on there. If you have it up top and you have a radius on there, it will be the wrong size. And now we need to adjust. Remember, we don't want our extra ½ inch up at the top. And we did cut 1½ inches for the fabric, correct? So let's scribe in our 1½ inch mark this time instead of our 2 inch mark. Move this up out of the way. Do the same thing with our clear ruler. We're going to grab our 1 inch above. And now this is, even though this isn't much of a radius, that takes a little bit of trick, talent to do that. You kind of roll this ruler around as you're marking that. If you had a big curve in there, you just take your time and you can do it. It's a pretty cool little thing once you get it down. So, cut out more than what we actually want. Cut the top right off of it. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the actual finished edge off of it. And then I'm going to write in here that this is the inside top. All right, let's do it again. Flip it back over so that you have the outside looking at you. I know a lot of people are probably fast forwarding at that point, but that's okay. We'll do it again. Anyways, scribe in our radius mark. Pull our fabric, our clear down, line it up. And now we're going to get our vertical side scribed in. Move it out of the way and get our fold line. Alrighty. Now we can go ahead and whack that off just the same as we did. Okay. That's how we make those components. Let's go to the sewing machine and we'll start fabricating this. All right, let's go ahead and start off with our top pieces. Simply because sewing can get repetitious, and we're not going to show you all of it, but I do want to show you the radius one, which would be the most difficult. So we've got our two pieces, and we know that this is our inside one. We're going to flip this over so that the marks are at the bottom, and I'm going to fold this over so that I can see. Let me show you that. You see the top line, the fold line right there? I'm going to fold this so that I'm folding right on top of that line, the pencil line. And now, when I stitch this down, if you're a Strata-Glass guy and you're watching this to duplicate, make certain that you don't stitch at the top here with the Strata-Glass, all right? Because you want to sew it down at the bottom first. This is for doing acrylic, because remember, we're not going to sew through the acrylic, we're going to bond it, but we need to have that stitch line up at the top. And one more thing, if you're not using Tenera thread by now, shame on you. Get your Tenera thread and use Tenera thread. This is a lifetime project, so make it a lifetime for them with the Tenera thread. All right, so fold this over, and I'm just visually looking right on that line, and I'm folding it down. And now I'm going to leave myself, I'm probably going to sew in at least 1/4 of an inch. In between 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch. 1/4 inch works well, but you want to leave yourself enough room so that we can put the bonding agent at this top edge so that it won't pick off, all right? Now, just fold that over and stitch it. Now, be careful with this. This is a finished edge. So you want your stitch, slow it down. I use my finger as a guide. If you need to put a guide up there, put a guide. But get it so that it's straight. Now you're going to notice that even though this is just ever slightly curved, if you just take your scissors and you just put a couple of little hash marks in there and don't cut all the way through your line right there, that will relieve that just enough so that you could make that nice smooth radius. And then again, start your sewing. All right, so from right here, I'm going to jump right into taking the outside piece, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fold it over, and we're going to start stitching. You can feel when you need to relieve it. You really can. You can feel it right in it. All right. So now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the outside piece, and I'm going to put these things together so that I know that's how they're going to go, right? So they're on there right. Now here's where I'm going to use my vertical marks that I made, and you can even see it on the inside of this panel. I'm going to line those up. There's several different. This is not Bible, okay? There's several different ways that you can do this. This just happens to be one of them that I choose. Now I have the inside piece facing up to me so that I can see that 3/4 of an inch line right there. And I know that we're going to have a full 3/4 of an inch of clear going inside this pocket right here. So I need to make certain that I stitch down. That's why we left ourselves 1 inch of fold right there. I need to make sure that I leave myself enough room that I can get the clear completely up inside there. So what I do is I'll use the toe, the edge of my toe right on that line. making certain that I keep these completely, I mean, dead on top of each other. So now, let me show you. You can see that I've stitched. Where I stitched on is stitching through all 4 of the layers at one time so they won't come undone. And I also have plenty of room to stick 3/4 of an inch in there. All right. So let's go. I'm going to do the same thing to the other, to the bottom, but let's go back over to the clear. All right. So I have both of these made, the top and the bottom, and you can still see that we have the excess on there. Here's a little trick that I like to do, and that's just put a piece of basting tape in here, and I'm going to baste down, or transfer tape, whatever you call it. So, and then you rub that down. Okay, so now we can come back and we can use our scissors. This is what I was saying earlier. You could cut these both off at the same time, which typically I like to do, but this way works as well. I just want to show you how we're coming up with these measurements. All right. So now we have an inside and an outside that's stitched down, folded over, clean, and it's exactly the right size. That's what's so important about this. Now we're going to start, here we go again. I'm not going to tell you in this demo what this bonding agent is. You're going to have to get on the site, and you're going to have to become part of the membership site in order to get all of these little tricks in here. That being said, let's start off. You can do this top or bottom, but make sure that you put your component on here the right way. Now on the inside and the outside, we have our reference marks, right? That we put the edges on here. So I'm going to just slide that in there, and let me get a close-up again. All right, what I've done is I'm just sitting this on a piece of dark fabric right now, just so that you can visually see what's going on. What I'm going to do is, once I've got it slid into the pocket, I'm going to pull this edge right up, and then I'm going to make sure that this reference line is as close as you can get it to being on the edge right there. And I'll use this is just 1.5 inch masking tape. 3M makes a good one. Scotch makes a good one. Just want to make sure that you get this tape that will not stick and you can't get it off. So at this point, I can just kind of put a piece of tape on there. Now let me back this out. All right, so that piece of tape right there is going to hold this on here. Now I just want to come through and I want to line it up and make sure that it's going to stay. There's several different ways to do this taping. Let me show you one little thing. Once you've got the edge lined up, you can come over here right to the center of it and get it lined up right, and put another piece of tape on there, and then pull off about what you need. Line it up so it's close to being on top of it. Fold that tape over like that. Now you can come in here and you can get down here and be able to manipulate this thing so that it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And then just rub this tape right there and hold it on. And then do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and move that for now. If I can get it off of me. Okay. All right, so we've got, that happens to be the outside taped on. We can flip this thing over now and get rid of this. Sure, it's probably close. We're going to put 2 beads of this stuff, of the bonding agent. We want one above, the bonding agent will not stick to the Gore-Tex or the Tenera thread. So we want 2 beads, one above the stitch line and one below the stitch line. So at this point, I always, and the size of this bead drip right here, I guess it's about a 1/16 of an inch-ish. And let's do the top. Okay, once you've done that, I'm going to take another starter piece of tape, put it on here, and press that down, finish it up. And then I actually use my fingernail and I kind of push the tape all the way into that joint right there. All right, so push that in, let it sit. Now we're going to take our weight bag and we're going to set it right on top of that joint. This does not take long. Typically you don't have just one panel. So what I'll get kind of a Henry Ford thing going on where it's just like a process. You know, I'll let this glue and it'll wind up sitting here longer than a couple of minutes or a minute before I actually take it off and get, you know, other stuff done. But if you're just doing one panel at a time, you know, typically 30 seconds, 30, 45 seconds, maybe a minute, you know, of time. That's enough to make the glue set and spread properly, so that it makes sure that it doesn't seep out of there also, out of the top to get onto the clear. Because trust me, there's guys out there that do not make mistakes doing this, and you don't want to be the one making mistakes. All right, so we've got that side done. Let's go ahead, we'll flip this over. You can either strip this tape and retape it, or just lift this up. I'll do it both ways. If I have a big curve, a lot of times I won't try to reuse this piece of tape. I'll just tape it again. But for this example, you can also come in here right now and you can see inside here and you can see how well your bond is. You know, that you've got it all sealed up so that the water's not going to run down there and run through it either. So, all right. Enough talking, right, John? Shut up. All right. Okay, that's done. Push that on there, push that on there. Kind of rub my fingernails in there. Keep that glue from seeping out. And then I'm going to reapply my bag. Okay, so you got the drift, right? I'm going to do the bottom the exact way that I just did this top. And then when we come back, we'll start doing the sides, all right? All right, so those are bonded. I got the tape pulled off of them, and I also just cut the fabric off right on our lines. Now, if that, you know, if you notice a visual difference in between the edge of the clear and your lines that you had on there, just rescribe it and cut it off. So now that we've got the top and the bottom done, Here's a whole different process, okay? So pay attention to this, because now we're going to make the sides, and we don't necessarily need the pattern to make the sides, because the sides are straight. But what we got to do is figure out the size of them. And we said that we wanted 1.5 inches. We've got 3/4 of an inch of cutout on the film, but we also need to be able to fold the edges over again. So we've got 1.5 inches on the outside, 1.5 on the inside, that's 3 inches. Plus we want 1 inch each way, so 5 inches. So we need 5-inch strips, because this is just going to fold over and leave a nice rolled edge. But what we need is the length. So we need about 38 inches of material. And we said that we want 5 inches. Let's do this. All right, so there's 38 inches. And we want 2 pieces, each of them 5 inches. So we'll make 2 marks there and there. And same thing here, 5 inches. All right. Now, I'm going to do this a bit different, okay? So let's pull that line, and let's pull that line. So technically, I think I just kind of made a little bit of mistake. I've got the good side of the fabric up at me, so I'm going to go ahead and cut these off now. Typically, you can do this and save this extra step if you drew this out with the inside of the material looking at you. But that's okay. That's part of learning, right? All right, so let's fold these over here. And because of the math that we just did, if we take our 2-inch ruler, we set it on the side, and we draw in 2 inches on the top and the bottom of this. Now when we fold this over, we can actually fold that over right to the line with the inside and stitch it down. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. That way you're not trying to look at the line from the outside. Just a different way of doing it. All right, let's go to the machine and make these. All right, so this time I'm going to do something a bit different, just like I was explaining. So now the good side of the material is down, and I've got these 2 marks in here. So what we can do is we can fold that over right on the line and visually be able to see it. But we're going to sew it down the same way as we did. All right, let's go through and get that right in the way. And I'm gonna fold sew all 4 of these down, and we'll come back. All right, I have both of these made and are folded over and stitched. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold it again. I'm gonna line it up and crease it, and this time I'm gonna come right down here to the outside edge, and I'm gonna stitch that down. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to take your time so that you get these things dead on the money. All right, let's do the other one just like that, and we'll go to the bonding. All right, okay, so I'm gonna go through. If you're still watching this at this point, good for you. That means you really wanna learn how to do this right. So 2 things we got coming up is putting these zippers on. It's critical. makes or breaks projects, so stay tuned, you know, for that. The other thing is I want to just go through this. Here's a completely made component that we just did by hand. Everybody out there knows, sure, there's these big, huge, giant companies out there, and they have these automated folders and these, you know, pre-made machines that make all this stuff without actually doing it by hand. And then they advertise that there's nobody on the planet that can do it other than them. Bullshit. Here's how you do it. And I'm showing you right now. And here's a component that is as professional as anything that you've seen out there. And we did it by hand. So everybody can do this by hand. Sometimes I get a little bit aggravated with these guys that think that they're so high and mighty. All right. Another little secret here, if you're still watching. You're not even going to be able to see it with the rulers. I'm not even going to bring out a ruler. But here's what I want you to be aware of. You're folding this over once, twice, 3 times. On the other side, it's 4, 5, 6 times. You're making 6 different folds on one panel each time, and we're doing it by hand. You have to be very, very conscious of the fact that this may not be right dead on 1.5 inches. It may be an 1/8, 1/16 of an inch off. If you've got an enclosure that you're building that has 10 panels on there, and you're an 1/8 of an inch off every time you make a seam, it's not going to fit. It's just not going to fit. So do your due diligence on each panel and make absolutely certain, and go back and re-reference your pattern, okay, to make sure that you're getting these components on here. You can make your adjustments with your zippers, but it's got to be exactly right, because there's no forgiveness with hard acrylic. None whatsoever. So you just saw me slide this component on here. I'm not going to show you this again because you've already seen it, but I'm going to tape this, flip it over, bond it. We're going to bond all 4 of these sides, and then we'll come back and we'll get ready to start cleaning this thing up and get some zippers on it. If you're witty enough to ask this question, the answer is yes. What I did is I ran the bonding agent right through the fabric on the top and the bottom of this thing. And that's what's so great about this breakwater fabric, is it will bond to itself really well. Okay, so here again, if this is a bigger component, then draw these lines out if you can't eyeball it, but it's pretty easy to eyeball this, including these ones that have a bit of a radius on them. It's the pieces that make a sharp curve that you'll want to draw those lines and not try to eyeball it, excuse me. All right, so we're bonded, man. That's looking good. Let's go ahead and we're going to go to the machine now, and I'm going to actually bind just the top and the bottom, because now we've got a nice, very clean finished edge on both sides of this thing. So let's bind it, and then we'll do the zippers and ketterweld, okay? All right, we got a 3/4 inch binding attachment, 3/4 inch binding, double folded binding. This happens to be stamoid binding. I don't believe that breakwater makes binding. So All right. Now we've got it bound and we're ready to stitch our zippers on with our Ketter welt. And this is what makes this so easy to do and why that scribe tool is so important and how this whole thing comes together. Remember that we have this line that we drew in when we first started building this component for our zipper. Now, because this panel is going to come on and off the boat, I want the spears to be on the Ketter welt, so when the panel's not there, he doesn't have a slide flapping around on his boat. All right, so just the spear will be on the track when he doesn't have this panel on there. So I'm gonna sew the slide to the panel itself. A little bit of a trick, which I'm sure that you guys have probably seen before, but we need to have some extra. So when we grab the slide, we can, because this thing is not forgivable at all, we need to have some play so that we can manipulate this slide onto the spear. So what I want to do is I want to come down and I'm going to put the edge of this zipper right on this line that we scribed, the 3/4 inch line that we scribed in, and then it's going to leave the 1/2 inch out, blah blah blah. You know how it goes. So I want the edge of the zipper to line up right with the edge of the panel, and I'm going to leave myself about an inch, okay, so that I've got some play in there. Now you can base this zipper down if you'd like to with some strapping tape, or not. Just take your time here. All right, now when we come to the edge, I'm also going to snap that off, and we can use that little tail to get the same amount of teeth. Take our little stainless steel zipper stops and put our stops on there. Now finish this up. Now this time, I'm not, on this particular panel, I'm going to go ahead and stitch it all the way closed. If we were making an enclosure and we had a vertical zipper coming down, we wouldn't do that, because I'd have this vertical zipper zip all the way through and have these loose up at the top. All right. So now that we have, we'll just jump right to this. You need to make sure that you have this so that you're stitching the spear onto the Ketter the right way, because you could actually do this the wrong way and have it be on the opposite side. But with the spear, now I'm just gonna put this bottom edge right on top of the bead right there, and we'll be straight as far as make this thing fitting, because it's exactly the way that we scribed it. So I'm going to do the same thing, stitch this on, and now there again, I don't need to leave any extra or hold the stitches back, because this is its own panel on the Ketter welt as well. So we can cut that off straight away. And then I always like to, this is just showing you can do this both ways. If you flip this around, if you have a standard foot, you can flip this thing around and now re-stitch it. And when you do, your foot is going to make a guide. Your foot will make a guide, and then see how clean that is? You get 2 stitch lines on there. So you can actually technically do the same thing with this, but you need to have, which I'm not going to go through it and do it, I have another foot that only has 1 toe on it. See that? So when I'm making an enclosure that like a big Hatteras or big Sea Ray with big panels, and I want to stitch the zipper down on here twice, I'll take this other toe and put it on my machine, and then I can sew the same way twice and get the 2 stitch lines in there, if anybody was wondering how that's done. So right now we can go ahead. The other thing too that I didn't do that sometimes gets done is I'm not putting any Velcro on this either. So, you know, there's steps prior to what we're doing now, you know, that we would put Velcro onto the Ketterwelting and put Velcro onto the panel as well to keep that on. But on this little job, we're not doing that. So just to remind you that there's several different ways. All right, so now I'm going to flip this over to the top, and I'm actually going to just do the exact same thing as I did if I had a zipper, which I don't. Hold on. All right, little trick that you could be kind of cautious or conscious about is I'm going to do the exact same method, the same way by sewing the slide at the top up here. But here's something that kind of is cool about this. What happens? Now we've got the start is back here. The start is here, right? And then the start's here. So you can, if it's tight, you can come in and start the top and just start the zipper, then come down here and start the bottom, and then when you zip both of them shut, the thing will just go bling, drum tight. Pretty cool little trick. So let's do the same thing. Put this on here. Give myself an inch or so and stitch this zipper right down. Move my slide. Cut off our excess. All right, you guys get the drift, right? Okay, as I finish this up, I will see you at the boat. Let's go put this thing on here, and we'll prove that this job is not just for the rich and famous. Every small guy around here like me can do this too. All right, let's go. I just wanted to show you that here's the top of the panel, and look how that does. See how the ketter is just above our mark, or the top of the fabric, so we know that that's exactly right and perfect. Awesome. All right, let's go back to the, let's go to the boat. All right, guys, so I just zipped it on here real quick, but here's the fun part of this. Once you get done, you get pulled up. Look at that. Looks like it was made for it. Matter of fact, you can't even see me, right?